Hello, we're Group 10 and we're going to be presenting our project proposal for Gestsoc. Our project's called What a Waste! Advancements of Wastewater Reclamation Plants in the Philippines. It's not a surprise that the whole world is comprised of 70% of the water. With that much water, of course, problems would arise. Even more for countries such as those that are archipelagos, like the Philippines. The Philippines itself is one of those countries that ends up getting these problems due to its location being close to the equator. What this means, though, is that it's very prone to more problems related to water, mostly global warming and the corruption or the dirtying of the water itself. Global warming is a phenomenon in which greenhouse gases get trapped within the atmosphere. What this essentially does is basically trap all the heat within the atmosphere, causing basically more heat. What this does, though, is create problems such as droughts in certain areas where there would be more focus on the heat, or even flooding due to the amount of rainfall. What this ends up becoming a problem is that it affects the actual dirtying of the water or the wastewater itself, due to it corrupting the solubility of the water. Water itself is very easily susceptible to corruption due to its chemical makeup being a universal solvent. With this, not just physical dirt gets stuck inside the water, but as well as its chemical makeup causing illnesses. Hence, what we're proposing is a solution that solves both problems through the use of reclaiming the water and cleaning the water, both physically and chemically, using a system similar to Singapore. What Singapore uses as a solution is something called New Water. New Water is a highly reclaimed wastewater produced by Singapore. New Water supplies up to 40% of Singapore's total water needs and is cleaned and processed through certain processes. From there, we have Athena to discuss it in detail.
So given that this proposed system will be adopting Changi New Water design, it will consist of three linked areas, namely the basin, the treatment area, and freshwater storage and lifting pump stations. In the basin, wastewater effluent from different sources like Pasig River will be received. It will pass a chamber before arriving at the equalizer tank. The water will then proceed to the feed pump and the strainer wherein solid wastes and other microorganisms are being filtered out. After being filtered, the water will be pressurized by high-pressure pumps to remove organic matters and colloidal components. Next, we have Alvin.
The final part of the reclamation process will involve the use of UV disinfection. The UV wavelength scrambles the DNA of living organisms in the water so they can no longer produce or reproduce and make you sick if you drink the bacteria instead of water. The organisms can be embedded in your digestive tract and replicate. By using UV wavelength, this will no longer be possible since they will no longer be able to reproduce. Once stored, it will be pumped to a series of pipe networks, which will go on to the last process, which is the distribution process. In terms of distribution, local governments will be given the task to distribute the water. It'll be an easy way to distribute water to marginalized areas and towns, since they have the resources to do so. And finally, for the closing remarks, I give it to Louise.
Okay, so since the process has already been discussed, we added a note below to indicate that the water reclamation system would be allowing more stakeholders of the project other than the government, such as the water concessionaires in the country, such as Manila Water and Maynilad, in order to increase productivity and lessen the cost. This would only happen if the initial source would not be able to supply the demands of the community. But it must be taken into consideration that this is still in partnership with the government in order to avoid monopoly and to equally distribute treated and potable water to cities around Metro Manila. So that's it for a presentation of the proposed solution that would address the occasional water interruptions and shortages in the country. Thank you for listening.